Hey everybody, it's Charles, your hobby hero, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of my most recent CGC returns. Before we get started, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe in the bottom corner down here if you like getting content about the Pokemon hobby. I do videos 3 times a week in addition to live openings. If you like this particular type of video, make sure you hit a thumbs up so I know to make more content like this for you guys going into the future. So having said that, let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, we had a bunch of cards come in today. We have not one, not two, but 3 boxes of CGC cards to go through today. I'm going to spare you the opening of these boxes. I do love their packaging, but it is a bit of a chore to get them open. So I'm going to go ahead and open these up, get them stacked up, and we'll go through the cards and kind of show you what I would do differently now. Because every submission's got an opportunity to learn some of the thoughts that I have on the grades on those particular cards. I do know the grades for these cards. I have seen those already. So I'll be able to kind of share a little bit more insight on what I think caused those cards to go into those grades and where I think I might be able to do things differently going forward. So we'll jump right into that. Okay, so without further ado, we'll jump right in. Again, very happy with the casing on these particular cards. Big fan of the way these slabs look. Go ahead and jump in here. So we have a first edition Shadowless Machamp with a near mint 8. I'll have the prices for recent solds up on the screens for you on these guys as well. Now, one thing I will say, I wish I would have gotten subgrades on a lot of these cards. I don't think subgrades are necessary on all of them. I do think people, especially on these hollows from the base set, they really want to see where the grade is coming from. This particular one, you can see the centering is off on a couple directions. Surface isn't perfect. There's some wear on the back edges. But again, if I had to do it over again, I would get subgrades on it. Initially, when I made this submission a couple months ago, there wasn't a whole lot of disparity between subgrades and non-subgrades. They have started to separate themselves a little bit. I think just overall it makes a more attractive card with the subgrades. So first card, near mint 8 Machamp first edition Shadowless. Alright, we've got a near mint 8 Shadowless again. Magneton. Again, similar stuff on this one as the one before. I wish I would have gotten subgrades on those. This is going for my Shadowless set. I have a full set of the Shadowless that I am sending off to CGC. I just prefer the cases on them. There's a few of these I'll probably resubmit just to get the subgrades because I like uniformity. So all my hollows will eventually have those subgrades on there. Next one's going to be a Nidoking 7.5. Again, centering's off in 2 directions on this particular card. Surface actually doesn't look bad on this card. Back edges, there's a bit of whitening all the way around it. One thing I really like about CGC is they have scans of these. So you can actually, the high resolution scan, you can kind of zoom in on the card. So if you have questions on the grades, a lot of times they'll be answered when you scan into those cards, and they're looking at these cards at even a higher magnification than you would see on there. It's going to be a 7.5 near mint Poliwrath. Similar as before, you can tell it's off-centered. Surface is not perfect on this one. Edge wear down here on the bottom. See some whitening on the edges there, but overall, nice 7.5. I haven't decided what I want on my Shadowless set, if I'm just going to keep it as is, or if I want to make sure that they're all near mint 7 or better, or if I want to make sure it's all 8 or better. I guess I'll know better when I get all of them back in. A lot of the ones that I have on here are all in the near mint to near mint plus categories, so very good cards in general. Now, what I will tell you is if I was going to grade any other vintage cards, you can see this one's already pretty chewed up down here at the bottom. I probably would not go with CGC if the intent is to resell. I think they are very accurate, but I also think they're very critical And for cards that are 20 plus years old, there's just going to be a lot to criticize. So you've got to take that into consideration. If your primary goal is to sell these cards, a CGC 8 may be a very accurate 8, but people are going to pay more if it can get a PSA 9 or a BGS 9, just because it's a higher number and will drive a higher premium, even if it's the exact same card. Okay, so this is another Machamp I had picked up. You'll see this one a little bit later on in a different video. It's a follow-up to one of my original flip or flop videos. I think I'd originally guessed this one at about a 6 to 7 range, so the fact that it hit right in the middle is not surprising. Surface in the front were very clean. It is off center on the front, and that edge, like I said, just being that chewed up, I would imagine that edge probably set the floor on the edge on the overall score, which is where I got that 6.5. It's a nice looking back on here. Oh, so we have a 9.5 Crobat V. And this is one I probably would not have graded. In hindsight, again, it does increase the value by more than what I paid to get it graded. So, I mean, it will still be a net profit. But a lot of this card's value comes from its playability, not its collectability. So when it is no longer playable, the value in this card is going to depreciate. And most people who are buying it because they want to put it in a deck, not so they can have a piece of the artwork displayed. But very strong score on the modern Crobat with a 9.5. Another very clean back here. We have the Espeon GX Near Mint 9 here. You can tell centering's off a little top to bottom. Surface scores, I'm sure, played into it when you have these full art cards like this. Again, they're just very hard to hold up a perfect score on those, which makes those even more highly sought after if you can get one with that perfect score. So you can see there's kind of a mix of modern and vintage stuff in here. Now centering on this one is pretty bad left to right. Oh, Snorlax VMAX. So funny story about this one. For those of you who do not know, my wife is a very big Snorlax fan. No pun intended. And I had actually forgotten that I had already gotten this card, opened it from a pack, and had sent it in to be graded. So we had been buying more packs from Sword and Shield, trying to open this guy, not having any luck, opening all the other Snorlaxes that are in that set. And then whenever I finally saw the grades on this one, I'm like, oh hey, I've had this guy pretty much for the whole time that you've been collecting Snorlax cards. So we have this one. I'm glad that was in there. Again, I wish I would have gotten the subgrades on it because I just want her cards to have subgrades on them because I think they do look better. And I don't know why I said better weird like that, but it's on there. I'm leaving it. So I can already see some edge wear quite a bit on this one. I'm going to assume this is a vintage card just from that level of wear on there. Oh, this is another one from our Flip or Flop series here. The Legendary Collection Reverse Hollow just missed the Near Mint 7. And again, you saw some edge wear on there. The surface on this one, it looks very good and is a great looking display card. But under close scrutiny, you can tell there's some fading on the card. Overall, very happy with the 6.5 on here. Again, I think I had predicted this one was probably going to get a 6. So it outperformed my predictions a little bit there. So pretty happy about that one. All right, we got, looks like a newer card here, very clean back. Okay, so this is a Vivid Voltage Reverse Hollow Charizard. I've got a lot of these out getting graded right now. I'm talking about kind of the differences in where I'm going. A lot of times, again, each submission's a learning experience. This one's obviously off center, a little bit left to right. Any of them that I have now that do not have perfect centering, I am just defaulting to send to the CGC, not CGC, sorry, to PSA for an attempt to get that 10. I would imagine that centering is what caused this one from getting its 10. Again, we don't have subgrades, so we don't know for sure, but obviously it's a brand new card. Surface isn't bad. There's like a faint speck down here. And again, that could have been the other 9.5 was the edges. But if you can find one issue with the card, there's probably one issue that you can't see. So knowing that the centering was off, like I said, if I had to do it over again, I would have submitted that one to PSA in an attempt to try to get a 10 instead of a 9.5. So we've got an older card here, lots of wear around these edges. There is a crease right here, which means I think I know what card this is. And yes, it is an excellent Alakazam, and this one is a 5. Again, this will be part of our Flip or Flop series. This is a card that I thought had been in pretty rough condition, but again, I missed this crease. I think I had my finger on this crease whenever I was looking at it in the store. But a 5 is actually, brings up an interesting point here, that CGC is very consistent the whole way down. From a 10 to a 1, you can see differences in those cards. A lot of people criticize them because this card may be a much lower grade at a PSA, but it's gotten a higher grade because of that different set of standards that they have going down, which I actually like a lot. But you have to understand this if you're out shopping for cards. This card may grade lower as a PSA card because PSA does kind of clutters the bottom. I've seen a lot of PSA 1s. There's a very wide discrepancy between some of them. I've seen some that are absolutely trashed cards, creases all over the place, hollow showing through. I mean, just destroyed cards, and they're a PSA 1. And I've seen some that are really nice looking cards that have, some very discreet, creases, or, heavy scuffing on the back, or just the foil surface is very heavily played, but they look way better than the other PSA 1s. So I like the fact that, for CGC, there is a difference there. If you have a 1, it is going to look different than a 2. It's going to look different than a 3, 4, and 5. And it's something to consider. If you have a more heavily played card, CGC may be able to get you that higher number up at the top. And again, people do tend to spend more for the number than they do for the actual card itself. So something to consider whenever you're selling those cards. All right, another clean back here, so probably a modern era card. We've got a Dreadnought VMAX 9.5, and again, I think this one missed it just a hair on the centering. Centering's off a little bit left to right. Now this one's kind of hit or miss. We talk about where to send cards if they're a little off center. It's kind of a judgment call. If this would hit a PSA 10, it would be worth more than a CGC 9.5, but I might not get it for an additional 6 months, so you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons on what that is worth to you. And you may be asking, why is he getting this card graded? The card's worth like $4. But you got to understand, with these cards and a CGC 9.5, and I'll have the recent solds up there, you can multiply sometimes as much as 10 to 15 times the value of these cards by getting them graded, especially in these secret rares. I wouldn't necessarily do it for all of them, but as you'll see here a little bit later on, there are exceptions to every rule. I think this is actually a second Dreadnought 9.5. Again, same things, off-centered a little bit left to right. And again, we can see one thing wrong with it, which means there's probably at least one other category. I think there's like a little white speck maybe over here that got it, that other 9.5 that needed to not be a 10. And if I believe the order is correct, that means this is the exception to the rule I was talking about. And it is a Gardevoir VMAX 9.5. So this is not a secret rare, but again, I'll have the comps up on recent solds. 9.5 and a Gardevoir VMAX, and again, it's off center. But if it has an outside chance of that 10, you're looking at a $30 to $50 card instead of just having a VMAX that you might be able to sell for $1 to $3. But generally, this is reserved for more popular Pokemon. I wouldn't do this just for every VMAX that you have unless you are really certain that that's going to come back at 10, and then it's definitely going to be worth the time and money to invest to get that graded. Moving right along. This one's pretty clean here. I'm going to go with a modern card here as well. I was wrong. So this is our Charmeleon. This is again, Shadowless set. You're going to see a lot of the Shadowless vintage cards in here. 8.5, near mint to mint. Again, centering is off on this one a bit. Surprised at an 8.5. I mean, you see some whitening around the edges here. There are several of these too. Like I said, when you look at the higher resolutions, you can see like print lines that aren't real noticeable to the naked eye. So that could have been it. Looks like there might be like a little speck right up here too. So that's not on the thing. It's actually on the card. So that may have affected the surface score as well with that little print dot here. Alright, another clean looking one here. I'd imagine it's more shadowless though. It is the Ivysaur, 8.5. So we've got two 8.5s. Again, centering not perfect on this one. A little bit of whitening on the edges and in the corner there as well. And then, any guesses on what this one might be? Well, that case is kind of scratched up there on the bottom. I'll have to take a closer look at that later here. See if this is going to be something we want to get resubmitted. Oh, it says Charizard V promo as a mint 9. Centering again is off, and again, just talking about like the other Charizard. Any of these that I have now that the centering is off, I've been sending to PSA. But on this one, the centering is off so far. It may not have mattered. It might be a PSA 9 either way. So another thing that you can decide on what you want to do. But even again, in a PSA 9, I think these are going for about $50. So you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons on whether or not you want that now or if you want to wait 9 months until those come out. Let's see here. Probably another one of the Charizard Vs. Yep, this one's a 9.5, which the centering on the front looks like it might be just a hair off top to bottom. It's pretty bad on the back, though. So I'd imagine that is where we lost our points there. Another Charizard V, another 9.5. So again, very strong couple of Charizard Vs here. Again, centering off on the front. And again, if there's one thing you can see, probably one thing you can't. But very nice cards in general. Alright, and our next one here. Another clean looking back here. Oh, Aerodactyl pre-release 8.5. I did submit 2 of these, so that's probably the next one we're looking at. This is actually the better of the two, which is kind of surprising. Centering's off top to bottom. Again, no subgrades, so unfortunately it does leave some questions on what all affected the grades. The edges don't look very bad on here, so it could be one that I consider resubmitting, unless, like I said, a closer inspection shows some more. There's some silvering on the outside border here, but not a ton. And the reason why it's so surprising is if this is the other one, it also got an 8.5, but the surface on this one's much more rough. I mean, I don't even know if you can see this. The scan shows it better, but there's a pretty gnarly line up here in the foiling hollow pattern. Again, it's off-centered as well from top to bottom and left to right on this one. And then off-centered on the back with a little bit of whitening on the edges. Again, 8.5 is a very strong card, so I'm very happy with those scores, especially with as old as those two cards are. We got some whitening on the bottom down here. I'm going to guess this is probably vintage as well. It is a Pikachu Black Star promo number 1. With a near mint 8. Now these were fairly common when I started playing, so I didn't have them sleeved. I had a stack of them basically in top loaders without penny sleeves on them. So again, for it to still be in a near mint 8, I am pretty happy with that, especially since the centering is pretty poor on it. And again, it's hard to tell in this case because they do display really well in these cases. But when you get under the magnification, if you look at those high resolution scans, you can see a lot of surface wear, especially on the backs, again, from sliding around inside of those cases for that long. 8.5, again, I submitted a handful of these guys. So a nice little 8.5 there. Another 8. So again, near mint to mint condition. We've got this one's corner over here is pretty rough. So, but another 8 on the Pikachu Black Star promo number 1. Very first promo card from Wizards of the Coast. Again, I picked them all up myself as a young child. Got another one here at an 8. Trading for them or earning them myself from the Books a Million we were playing in. It's a pretty rough edge wear down here. Looks overall pretty good. Oh, Clefairy, base set, Shadowless. A little surprised that this one got an 8 with all that hollow, but that hollow actually looks really clean. I don't know if I can really do it much justice. Try to get the light in it a little bit, but very clean hollow surface. Centering, obviously poor on the front, and that back edges, I'm sure cost it quite a bit on that score. Alright, we got some pretty heavy edge wear up at the top here. Let's see, oh, we got a Gyarados 7.5. Now the surface on this one was pretty beat up. I did have a Rain Dance deck built back in the day with Gyarados in it, so this may have been one of the copies that was actually in that deck. Most of my set was never played with, but this card certainly was, and you can tell from the surface on that card, so I think that's why its score is a little bit lower than some of the other ones we have seen. We've got some whitening on the edges down here already that we can see. Centering on the back is not great. Hitmonchan at 8.5 though. I'm pretty impressed with that. Again, a lot of hollow surface on this one. So for a near mint plus, especially with the centering being off in 2 directions, I will take that gladly. I think we may be getting into some of the cards with subgrades here soon, I'm hoping. We should be getting close to them. This whole side though, lots of white on this side here. Edges, just in general, this card's pretty heavily played. I'm going to venture that this is probably a vintage card here. Okay, Alakazam. So this is going to bring us into some of the other cards that were part of that Flip or Flop series. I picked up a series of Alakazams. One we already saw that got the 5. I think this was the best condition of the ones, which I had predicted would probably be a 7. So we got a 7 on that one, so I'm pretty happy with that. Which means this one here, you're going to see all kinds of white spots on the back here. There's a big chunk of dirt in there, though. That is not in the case here, so that one's probably going to have to get sent back. That definitely was not there when the card was submitted, so we'll need to get that taken care of and cleaned up, because that's huge. But again, that stuff happens. It happens to all the grading card companies. It's just part of the process. So we got a 6.5 on this particular one here. Again, just more wear on the back than the other one. We saw that. I think I predicted these were probably going to get a 6, 6.5. So pretty close on that. And if I'm wrong on it and I go back and watch the video, I'll let you guys know here if I was wrong too. Again, heavy play on this one. Another 6.5 on an Alakazam. This one's got a little bit of whitening on the back edges here. Centering's off, a little top to bottom. Pretty white corner up there as well. So we've got the Secret Wonders. Lugia, 8.5 near mint. I think I had actually predicted that this was going to be a 9, so it came a little under. That top corner does look pretty bad, though. So I don't know if I just thought that I could sneak away with that. But that combined with the centering, which is a little off on front and back, is probably what caused that. But again, 8.5 is not a bad score. This particular one, we got again, this is one of those, like I said, there's some indentation actually on the card I don't know if there's any way I can get that to show. Oh, yep, just a little bit right there. There you go, right above the light on there. You can see that indentation on there. Some whitening on the corners, whitening on the top edges, corners, all got there. Some pretty heavy play there. So, okay, this is the Dragonite, 5.5. I'll have to go back. I can't remember what I thought this one was going to come in. Again, we were not expecting a whole lot out of this one. It was mostly getting encapsulated because, you know, encapsulated, it's still going to be worth more than it was going to be raw. It was a Dragonite, which is a popular Pokemon, and it is a WotC one, so just to make sure that it's not getting any more dinged up than it already was. And again, that video, we can go back and watch it. It's already been tagged up in the eye. A lot of these cards were not easily determinable what condition they were in, just based on the lighting and some of the other factors that were going on at that point in time. Alright, so we got probably another vintage card here. Pretty heavy wear on these corners. Dark Dragonair, first edition Team Rocket, similar to the Dragonite. Just a nice, cool, old WotC era card. This one obviously with the first edition stamp. Centering is pretty atrocious, but just a nice looking old card to fill in that submission. Alright, we've got some centering, pretty off on this one in the back. Corner's not too bad. Oh, Shadowless base set mint 9 Pidgeotto. So I think this is the best Shadowless set card that we've seen so far. And it is on a rare Pidgeotto. We got some heavy whitening in the corner there. A little bit of whitening on the edges. Centering's not great on an Electrode, 8.5 near mint. If you haven't figured it out, like I said, vintage cards are very hard to get those high scores. So if you see vintage cards graded by CGC and you see them and those 9, 5s, and 10s, just know that it is very difficult to get those. An Electabuzz at 8.5, pretty score there. So when we talk about how people can kind of manipulate some of the grading companies by sitting submissions in of all, you know, vintage cards, so they're kind of grading them against the same scale and not grading them in comparison to the modern era cards. I don't think you get that same curve with CGC that you might with some of the other grading card companies by doing that. I think, again, for better or for worse, that consistency is going to hold through on all of them, which is just going to make getting those vintage cards at those higher scores probably more difficult than if you're taking them to an older company. Let's got some there. Ooh, Doug Trio, 8.5. Again, Shadowless base set. I'll leave in the comments what you think on my Shadowless set. If you guys think I should just keep it as is, the original set that I picked up as a kid, or if I should try to upgrade it to either all CG7 plus, CGC 8 plus, or CGC 9 plus, or, you know, be really crazy with it and go with the CGC 10 only, which would be a big test for that Dragonair 8. And again, I'd imagine that centering is way off, so that was probably what tanked his score so hard there. Otherwise, a very clean looking card. A little bit of wear on the bottom edges. We've got another one here. Pretty bad corner down here. Surface looks good on the back. Ooh, Beedrill at 7.5. Didn't like Beedrill before. Now he's one of my lower scoring cards. I like him even less. It's pretty clean on the back. We got a Wartortle at 8. So he got pretty far away from the Ivysaur and the Charmeleon. I think he's actually the lowest scoring one of the three too, so that will probably bother me that they all have 3 different scores. But we got a Wartortle at an 8. I'm not entirely sure why he was a half score worse than the other two, but again, it's not a huge difference between the three of them, so I'm sure I would not be able to figure it out without getting those subgrades. We got another pretty clean back here. Charmander at an 8.5, so just missed that coveted 9 spot. Centering is off a little bit. Again, I would be curious to figure out. That one looks pretty clean, even on the corners and the edges. But we'll see. Again, there's quite a bit of whitening on this one's edge here. Bulbasaur 7.5. Not surprising that it's a full point lower. Centering's also off on the front. This one is an error with the length, but they all have that, with the exception of the 4th print of those cards. So while it is an error, it is not a rare error. If you have one that's Shadowless, it's got that error. It was not corrected in that set. This one looks pretty clean here, and hey, a Mint 9 Squirtle. So one of the starters here got us into that 9 air. So very happy with that guy there. Alright, we're getting into the last few cards here. Well, that's all kinds of fuzz on the case here. So they are shipped very well, but the packing materials they use on them do leave a lot of stuff on the case, which I've got a little towel over here to wipe them off. But if you see stuff on there, a lot of times it is the case there. So we've got, alright, a Ninetales. So we are into our graded cards here with these subgrades. So as you can see, the centering is off 2 directions, which I'm surprised it still got an 8.5 on the centering. It's pretty far off. Surface is a 7.5. I can't see a lot, again, on the naked eye on the surface. But again, I've looked at the high resolution scans on these, and most of them I did not have a qualm with any of the grades based on that. Again, corners and edges, 8.5 and an 8. So near mint to mint Ninetales from Shadowless. I've got another one here. A little white speck on the corners, maybe just a hair of whitening up on the edges here for a Raichu 8.5, near mint to mint plus. Centering off, again, it's off in 2 directions for that 8.5. Surface, again, hard to get anything to show up on the surface. But corners 9, edges 8.5. That's actually pretty strong. Corners and edges score, considering, like I said, you can actually see some white specks on there. So I will take that. Good thing about the electric type Pokemon is whenever the centering's kind of their weak spot, it's kind of hard to see the centering on these cards anyway. So if you want a good display piece, it very rarely will visually affect that card. Alright, centering is pretty bad on the back here, but corners and edges look pretty strong. Oh, that's because it is a new card, Modern Era card, Pikachu VMAX. Centering's pretty bad on this card. Again, you got an 8.5 in the centering, with 9.5s all the way around on the others. This could be a card that I resubmit. Again, it's not that the grading company is easier than other grading companies. They just have different parameters. And if all these roll up into a 10 with that company because of their parameters being different, and we can get that centering to roll up to a 9, this could roll up to a 10 and be a very and increase the value considerably. So one we could consider on that. Another relatively clean edges. This may be another Modern Era one as well. It is not. This is our Red Cheeks Pikachu at an 8.5, near mint to mint plus. Centering got an 8.5. Does look like it's off 2 directions again. Surface 9.5, so almost a perfect surface score. Corners 8.5 and edges 9. A little surprised by that edge score. I mean, there's a little bit, I don't even think I can get it to show on this game, a little bit of whitening on this edge, but not a ton. And I mean, honestly, if that rolls up to a 9, this is probably a 9. So that's unfortunate. I think if it was resubmitted, it has a good chance of potentially rolling up to 9, even within CGC standards. But again, there's always going to be a little bit of room for variance, and that's kind of the decision you have to make on those particular cards and whether or not it's worth it. The point, if I keep the set as is, I don't think I'm going to be worried about it. But if I ever do go for a 9 set, I may just resubmit that one rather than trying to go out and purchase a CGC 9. I got a nice one there. So this is the first edition Jungle with the Wizard Stamp 9 mint. Very nice score on that one. Centering got a 9. Off looks like left to right. Surface 8.5. That is surprising on a non-holo card. This may be the one, and again, I probably won't be able to see it very well on the back here. There's one that had some print lines in the back of the card that you could see on the scan. But corners and edges 9 and 9.5. So again, very strong condition card all the way around. Just a little bit of an issue with centering, but all in all, very nice. Next one here, we got some whitening on the edges that I can see already, or the corners rather. Edges look pretty good actually. Apparently they look as good as the corners. So we got a near mint to mint Mewtwo from the Shadowless set. Centering pretty atrocious, hence the 8. Surface, the holo does have some wear in it. Again, not real obvious, which I don't know if it's just these cases, but even in person, like if I'm looking at these here, like when I examine these cards before submitting, I could see a lot of the wear on the surfaces. But this particular one looks very good in the case and very clean in the case though. So near mint 8 on Shadowless Mewtwo. We've got dust everywhere. Got some whitening on the edge here. Some more whitening on these edges. Ooh, for a near mint 7 Chansey surface on this one. I mean, you can even probably see this one on there. This particular card is very hard to grade because of all that really light. There you go. You can see all that surface wear on the holo, which is what really sunk the score on this one. Corners and edges had some issues. Obviously, centering wasn't perfect. All the way around, just not the best card, but again, still near mint 7, and I will take that for sure. We've got some whitening on the edges. This bottom corner here is actually pretty rough. Quite a bit of whitening on this whole edge, actually right down through here. Which that is, the Clefable. Excellent to near mint 6.5. This particular card is like impossible to find in good condition. I'm pretty sure they were sent out to 2 tournament organizers with like a rubber band wrapped around them, loose, without plastic or anything. I never played this card. It went straight into my collection as a child. There are surface scuffs all over the surface here, which gives the nice surface score of 6.5. Centering's off, honestly, pretty badly. I guess 8.5 is not a great surface score. It just looks really good in comparison to these others. Like I said, the edges were just torn up. The corners were torn up. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was just in somebody's pocket with a rubber band wrapped around it until it was handed out to the kids. We've got some centering issues on the back. Nothing crazy. Pretty clean corners and edges. This one. Now, this particular one, I may have to resubmit this one. I can't for the life of me, even with the high resolution scans, find why the surface would be a 5. I've looked over the high resolution scans. I obviously looked over this card in person. Alakazam is one of my favorite Pokemon. There are no dents, there are no indentions. The only thing that is on there is, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little extra dot of ink, like right up here, like printer ink. I don't even know if I can get it all in focus. It's a little blue dot. But I mean, I can't imagine that dropping the surface score all the way down. Generally, when you see such a discrepancy like that, there's usually like a small crease or a dent in the card that you can't see. But I mean, I've gone over this card a couple different times in high resolution scans, and I have not found anything. And as you can see, it's a very strong card everywhere else. You got 9.5 centering, you got a surface score that, again, we're not sure where it's coming from, and corners at 8.5 and edges at 8.5. And honestly, the surface is pretty clean, and I could easily see it coming back with an 8 in the surface, which would probably make this card an 8.5, which obviously is tremendously different from the 6 that it's at there. So of all the ones we've looked at so far, that's probably the one I've got the biggest complaint with on a grade. All the other ones, like I said, have been pretty, you may not like the grade, but it's pretty fair grade, generally speaking. Centering is really bad on this one, which means I think I know which version this is. I'm pretty sure this is the Evolutions Charizard. I don't know how sad that is that I can recognize Evolutions by their centering. And of course, it is the Evolutions Charizard. And again, I think I had predicted this one was actually going to get a 9. And again, the centering was probably too far off for that to ever really actually be a possibility. I was kind of hoping we could get an 8.5 on the centering, or at least get the off-center tag on it so that the center score was not factored in for it. Surface 8 was kind of surprising. It looked pretty clean when looking at it, but again, I did purchase this one for the purposes of grading, so I can't vouch for how it was stored up until the time that I bought it. Corners and edges, like I said, just a hair of white in all of them. So again, upset that it got the 8 and couldn't squeeze out an 8.5 or 9. But again, not that I don't disagree with the score. I just kind of wish it would have been a little higher. All right, we've got our last two here, and they are big ones here. So we've got centering here, a little off. We got a little bit of whitening on pretty much all the corners, a little bit of whitening on pretty much all the edges. Not a lot, but there is some. Now this one here has got, let's see if I can get it to show up, because it is tiny, but it is there. You can sort of see it right there. There's a hairline crease that is just on the back of the card, but it is there. And no, I can't really get it to show up, but it is on the card. This is our Blastoise, and again, that surface score, kind of what we were talking about, like on that Alakazam, it's usually the kind of stuff that ends up being there. This card graded very high, centering 8, corners 8, edges 8, and I think without that crease on it, I think we could have been looking at an 8 on that surface there. But again, that little thing on it is going to max their score out at that 5. So we have a excellent to near mint Blastoise, and again, an excellent display one. This is going to make somebody very happy when I do part ways with it, because again, it is a very good looking card. So with just an unfortunate crease, again, which side on here, like I said, on the front you cannot even see it. Like I said, if you can catch the light, you might be able to catch a shadow. Maybe right in there. You can sort of catch the shadow of the crease, but it is not creased all the way through the card. So very nice looking Blastoise, excellent to near mint. And our last one, for those of you guys who haven't already seen, the Charizard had come back much sooner. It was expressed due to the value of the card being just higher than these other ones on here. So you can go check out the other videos I have out on Instagram or Twitter if you want to see the score on that particular guy. We've got some whitening on the edges, for a 7.5 Venusaur. Centering off top to bottom, pretty thick there, off a little bit left to right. Surface, the hollow surface doesn't look too bad. Again, at least not under regular magnification. Corners and edges, again, saw quite a bit of whitening on the four corners on the back. But again, near mint to mint, or near mint plus rather, for a base set Shadowless Venusaur. So not upset by the grades that we got there at all. So some of the lessons I've learned since submitting this card, again, a big thing that you have to take into consideration is if you are submitting vintage era cards, I would probably not recommend CGC unless you were really confident on the condition. As you can see, these cards were pretty well kept by me myself, most of them acquired by myself 15 years ago, and sat in basically untouched storage for that period of time, and still got very few 9s even on the non-hollow cards that were submitted. So there are going to be some other companies out there that I think with all vintage submissions you can probably get some more favorable grades on, again, if your intent is to sell them. Other than that, subgrades on probably, I would say, any card that you think has a value of $50 or higher, I would probably have put subgrades on at this point in time, just because it's going to help, if nothing else, help it sell faster, because people who may not trust the grade on the card, maybe don't have great pictures on it, depending if you're selling it online or in person, it kind of gives them peace of mind whenever they can see, okay, I think the centering's off. It looks like the centering was a 9.5 based on the score. It looks like it had a strong surface, strong back, which the picture seems to suggest it also had. No hidden things on there. So like the Blastoise on there, you know, whenever they see that 6, you know, they may immediately think that's a pretty poor condition Blastoise. With those subgrades, it allows them to come in and be like, okay, well, there's something going on with the surface that's not easily discernible, and can get more information from that. May make them more confident in the overall purchase. So just some food for thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And again, like I said, if you like videos like this, make sure you hit like, so I know that you guys want more content like this in the future. Until next time, though, it's Hobby Hero, and I'm out.